Hi boys and girls, good morning. Today I'm going to read a story called An A From Miss Keller by Patricia Polacco. So let's just take a look at the cover right there. Does it look like getting an A from Miss Keller is going to be very easy? No, I don't think so. Let's find out what happens. On the first day of class, Miss Keller slithered into the room and, strutting up and down the aisles, snarled, "I am going to transform each and every one of you into a crackerjack writer." One enormous miracle, right? But, she barked in a deep Southern accent, if you think this class is going to be simple, head for the door right now. You are going to work harder than you have ever worked in your entire miserable little lives. Some of you may not make it through the term. I felt as if she was looking right at me. Miss Keller seemed taller than she really was. She stood stiff and erect, but when she was at her desk, she reminded me of a bird of prey perched on a dead limb, ready to swoop down on any one of us. Your first assignment is going to be an essay. I expect you to dazzle me, impress me, send me into ecstasy with your brilliance. I want to see if you deserve to be here at all. The subject? Your families and your home life. The inside story. We all scrambled, took out paper, and started to write. No, not in class, she boomed. We all dropped our pencils. This is a homework assignment. 3 full pages and no grammatical errors. Due tomorrow. I swallowed hard. The whole way home, all I could think about was that essay. It just had to be good. I turned up the hill and walked toward my house. Pop Schloss, our next-door neighbor, was sitting on his front steps. He lived alone, wife gone, kids grown. He patted the step next to him. Bad day? He asked, pulling a bag from his pocket and offering me a newly baked cookie. Pop, known far and wide for being a master pastry chef, always carried cookies in his pocket. I have the meanest teacher in the whole school. Not Killer Keller. Pop pretended to hold his head in shock. I nodded. Both of my sons had her in school. Remind me to tell you a story about her sometime. We both just sat and watched the birds land on the telephone wire across the street. Like I said, that essay just had to be good. That night, I took to my desk and began to write. I loved my room, and it was a big part of my home life, so I looked around and began to describe it in detail. I wrote about how I loved my cat, my mom, my new skirt, eating breakfast. I felt masterful. This was, I thought, some of the best writing I had ever done. I could hardly wait to read it out loud in class. The next morning, one by one, my classmates read their essays out loud. I wasn't afraid to read, but I sure was nervous. Then I heard my name. Miss Barber, you're next. I read my masterpiece about my family, my home life, about how I loved everyone and everything about it. I was sure Miss Keller would be impressed, but she started pacing. Miss Barber, you used the word love to describe your cat, your skirt, your neighbor, a pile of pancakes, and your mother. Do you feel the same way about a plate of pancakes as you do about your mother? Words convey feelings, but there are differences. Class, take out a piece of paper and make a list of words that convey love. But love is the one word you cannot use. We all tried, but our lists were very, very short. All right, class, she swept to the front of the room. Do you know what a thesaurus is? And no, it is not a prehistoric lizard. No one could answer. That is your first assignment for tonight. Figure it out. Bring a thesaurus to class and look up the word love. After I got home that afternoon, I ran next door to see Pop. A thesaurus? I think I still have mine that the boys used to use when they had Miss Keller, he bubbled as he trundled into their old room. And yes, sirree, here it is. He pulled out a small paperback from a pile of books. All the words are listed in alphabetical order. And in the back, word choices, over 150,000. If I remember Miss Keller, this book will be your Bible from now on. That very next day, Miss Keller wrote a list of words on the board: content, cool, loyal, and told us to use our thesaurus to list as many alternatives to each word as we could find. Whoever got the longest lists would be excused from the Friday quiz. And guess what? I had the longest lists. I had actually done something right. No quiz. But out at recess, Eric Yangdon and Tim Farkas started teasing. Looks like the dumbbell is teacher's new pet. As the days passed, Miss Keller gave our class all kinds of writing exercises to do. Sometimes in the classroom, sometimes out. We went outside one day to listen to trees, to sharpen our senses, Miss Keller said. We listened in on conversations in the lunchroom for a dialogue assignment. To begin to understand color, we went to the town dump. One day, she brought a bunch of objects right into the classroom. Handlebars, a screwdriver, a cup, set them out and told us, look at each object and make a list of what we could use them for, except for the thing that they were meant to be used for. For homework that night, she asked us to interview an older person about an object in his or her house that meant something to him or her, a pretty dish or a tablecloth, a figurine. She called it a found object. Of course, I knew exactly who I was going to interview. Who's she going to interview? Pop. That's right. Pop and I walked around his house together. What are you going to pick as your found object, Pop? I asked. He just couldn't seem to decide. After a time, he walked over to his mantel and took down a beautiful photograph. This lovely woman is my Millie. I was in love with her from the moment I laid eyes on her, he whispered quietly. She was so lovely, Patricia. When she walked into a room, the sun and moon would peek into the window just to get a glimpse of her. Oh, how I miss her, his voice trailed off. He talked to me about his Millie for the next hour. I started writing before I left his house. I was sure I nailed it this time. I wrote with oodles of heart and feeling. I couldn't wait for Miss Keller to see this essay. But when she handed it back, there was a C scrawled at the bottom. Again. What did she want from me anyway? She kept me after school that day. Miss Barber, your paper on your neighbor's Millie was, well, adequate. But where are the words that truly show emotion? Then she turned and looked right at me. The reader needs to feel what you feel, Miss Barber, but not in an ordinary way. Be daring, unexpected, surprising, original. Now she gazed deeply into my eyes. You have the words, Patricia. You have to give them wings. That day, I found Pop out in his backyard feeding his koi fish in the pond. Pop could see I was upset. I told him everything, that the boys in class were still calling me teacher's pet, even though Miss Keller was harder on me than anyone. That today, she said I lacked emotional connection with my writing. My guess is old Killer Keller has taken a real interest in you, or else she would have just let you sit there like a bump on a log. As for the teasing, do you know what my first name is? It's Lynn. The guys in my class loved that, and I was the only boy in cooking class, too. They never let me live that down either. The two of us laughed so hard we could hardly catch our breath. I had noticed before that Pop sometimes took pills. He said they were to keep his ticker going. I knew that meant his heart. Today I noticed he slipped 2 pills under his tongue. Days with Miss Keller seemed to fly by, none of them easy for me. Then one day she called us together. Today I am assigning you the dreaded term essay. Well, I'd heard about it all right. I have taught you many forms of writing. Dialogue and scene, opinion essay, personal narrative. Choose one of these for this last big assignment, and choose well. The grade I give you may well determine if you pass. I was already sweating. To make things worse, she asked me to stay after for a little chat. Patricia, she said, I hope you choose a personal narrative, because quite frankly, your writing still lacks emotional connection with the reader. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't come up with a subject for my term essay emotional enough for Miss Keller. The last Sunday before my deadline to hand in the topic, all of us kids, Stuart, Winnie, Chantil, we were at Pop's baking cookies for a block party to help raise money for Mrs. Scudder across the street. She had fallen down her back stairs and broken bones. As we were rolling the cookies out, Stuart asked me how I liked Miss Keller. I told him that no matter what I did, no matter what I wrote, didn't seem to please her. To top it all off, I said, tomorrow our topic is due for the term essay, and I don't have one. That reminds me. I told you that I'd tell you a story about Miss Keller, Pop said thoughtfully as he rolled out a ball of cookie dough. All of you kids know she is one tough teacher. But not too long ago, she came across one of the most talented writers she'd seen. She picked apart everything he wrote, had him do it over and over until he got it right. Truth is, he'd never worked so hard for a teacher in his life. So what happened to that kid, Pop? Stuart asked. Well, he became a writer. Went to work for the biggest newspaper in Chicago, then to the biggest newspaper in Washington, D.C. He covered stories from South America to the Middle East to Soviet Russia. Once he won a Pulitzer Prize for reporting. He probably would have gone on to do that anyway, Miss Keller or not. Not really, Tricia. This boy's family could never have afforded to send him to college. Miss Keller not only taught him how to write, she raised money for his tuition and fees and personally saw to it that he attended journalism school. Otherwise, he might have ended up working in his father's bakery, Pop said with a glint in his eye. That's right. That kid was my very own son. And I, for one, am grateful for that dogged, high-spirited woman, Killer Keller. Without her, well, who knows? He slipped another pill under his tongue. Not a week later, still with no essay topic, I'd come early to Miss Keller's class when the office secretary came in and gave a note to her. Miss Barber, Miss Keller said, we need to go to the office. She looked shocked and sad. When we got to the office, my mother was there. I could see she had been crying. She told me Pop had passed away that morning. A sudden heart attack. As we pulled into our garage, I saw Pop's sons. They looked so heartbroken. All I wanted was to go through his house one last time. His sons invited me over. I walked through every room, touched his pillow on his bed, ran my hands across the back of his favorite chair, held his bakery coat that he wore when we helped him make cookies. I couldn't stop crying. The sky wasn't happy anymore. How could the earth still be turning when someone like Pop had left it? That night, I sat at my desk and started writing. I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. It seemed like the whole neighborhood was at Pop's funeral, even Miss Keller. And the shops on College Avenue closed for the day. Everything looked different somehow. My sadness hurt everywhere. Long after it was due, I placed the piece I had written the day Pop died on Miss Keller's desk. I didn't really care anymore whether I impressed her or not. All that mattered was how I felt about him. A few days later, I got a pink slip from Miss Keller to come and see her. My heart almost stopped. Anyone who got a pink slip was about to get real bad news because it was the end of the term. She must have hated my essay. I started sobbing. First Pop, now this. I didn't even know if I would pass. But when I walked into her room, she actually took both my hands. "Patricia, dear, I am so sorry for your loss," she said. Then I saw my essay folded in half on her desk. "I have graded your essay," she began. "I don't want you to unfold it until you are home. Do you understand?" I shook my head yes. Then she did something that startled me. She hugged me. She actually hugged me. Then she whispered, "Patricia, you wrote a stunning tribute to Pop, the crowning example of a personal narrative." My heart sang as I ran all the way home with my essay still folded in my hand. As I climbed the hill, I stopped and looked up at Pop's house for a moment. "You're with Millie now, Pop," I whispered. That thought made me warm inside. Then I opened my folded paper. There, written in red across the top of the cover sheet, "Patricia, your spelling still leaves much to be desired. However, you've given your words wings. I am departing from my custom. Here is your A." The end. And boys and girls, this is a little note from the author, because this is a personal narrative, which means that the author wrote it about her own experience, something that really happened to her in her life. Did you notice that the character's name was Patricia or Tricia? And the author's name is Patricia Polacco. So here's a little note from Patricia Polacco. "My heart warms whenever I think of Miss Keller. She later told me that she was impressed with how I used Pop's very own thesaurus to write my papers. I remember his notes were in the margins in his own handwriting. When I read them, it seemed to bring me closer to him. Certainly, I did use the word love. However, I used every form of it. To this day, when I think of Pop and Miss Keller, my thoughts soar, for I shall always regard them as beloved." Patricia Polacco. There's a little illustration. The end. All right, and yay! Patricia got an A, and it wasn't easy, but she got it, and she worked really hard. Now, Miss Keller treats Patricia with something called tough love. What do you think this means? Why do you think she treats her this way? I want you to quickly pause the video and just think about it. And if there's someone around you, you can have a quick discussion about it. When you come back, we'll see if we came up with similar ideas. Again, what do you think tough love is? And why does Miss Keller treat Patricia with tough love? You ready? 1, 2, 3, pause. Hey, welcome back. I'm sure you have some really great ideas, and I'm going to share with you what I think. To me, tough love is when you are hard on someone because you want what's best for them. So, for example, sometimes a sports coach may raise her voice or give extra drills, but usually it's just because she wants her team to do well and to get better and stronger. So I think Miss Keller treats Trisha this way because she really believes in her and she sees her potential to be a really great writer. So she keeps challenging her and she sets very high expectations for her, which motivates Patricia to keep on going, to keep on trying. So I think that that's what tough love is. Now, this story is called A Personal Narrative. And as I said before, that's because Patricia Polacco actually wrote it about herself and a real experience that she had. So in the future, I'm going to be reading some more books by Patricia Polacco. I have a lot of them. And I thought we could use this book as a good introduction because we learned a little bit about her personal life and how she became a writer. So here are just a few of her other books that I have here. So I've got tons, and I've got more. So when we read a lot of books by the same author, that's called an author study. And I'm really excited that we're going to be doing this author study on Patricia Polacco because she's got a lot of really good stories. So by doing this, we're really going to get to know her writing style, and we're also going to be able to compare and contrast her books so we can see some similarities and some differences. So because this book is a personal narrative or a story written about her own experience, I'd like you to think of a time in your life that you would maybe want to write a little story about. Is there a time that you can think of that was particularly challenging for you, like this time was for Patricia Polacco? Or maybe it's a time that you felt emotional in some way. If you were sad, like when Patricia wrote her essay about her beloved pup. Or maybe excited or frustrated. Can you think, did you learn anything from this experience? Like how Patricia learned about tough love? What title would you give it? So, for example, I, Miss Southard, might want to write a story about the time that I went on a trip to India and I almost got attacked by a large group of monkeys. So if that were to be my story, I might title it something like Monkey Mania or Monkeys in the Wild, something like that. And I'd want to talk about how I felt. So during the experience or just before the experience, I was feeling very cheerful and adventurous. And then during the experience, I first felt pretty nervous. And then I felt really, really scared. But then when it was over and everything was okay, I felt really relieved. So my feelings changed. And when I think back, I actually feel like it was exhilarating. Exhilarating, that's a big word. Exhilarating is a synonym for, or another word for, exciting. And do you know how I found that word? I looked it up in my thesaurus, which I don't have a paperback thesaurus like Patricia Polacco had, but if you check out on your browser, on your computer, or your tablet, you can go to thesaurus.com and you can type in any word in the synonym box, and it will give you a whole list of other words that are interchangeable with that word or similar to that word. So, for example, if you wanted to use a bigger, better word than sad, which I know Patricia Polacco uses the word heartbroken when she finds out about pop, you can go to thesaurus.com, type in the word sad in the synonym box, click search, and then a whole list of words will come up that are bigger, better words that you can use instead of sad. So while they all have similar meaning, each word gives off a different feeling, right? Heartbroken feels a little bit different than sad. You also might find the word sorrowful or blue. I was feeling blue. So give that a try if you're feeling up to the challenge. So I've included the writing prompt for your journal or piece of paper or whatever you're going to be keeping some of your writing in during this time away. So it's just down in the description if you want to go down and read it again so you know what you're writing. And your stories, I'd say just do about 5 to 10 sentences. If you want to write more, absolutely go ahead. So just tell us about a certain time in your life. Give it a title. Share your emotions and if you learn anything from it. And yeah, just get fun and creative. And I can't wait to hear all your stories. Okay, guys, that's it for now. And I'll check in with you in a day or two. Take care. I miss you guys.